Defunding the police is a bad idea, but here is a better solution. We'll talk about it on the Hot Zone. Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone today. So on the last episode, I talked about the problem with sex trafficking in America and what the federal government is trying to do about it through the U.S. Marshals Service. And I talked about how the Marshal Service has been pulled away from rescuing children because they've had to deploy their agents to Portland and other places where federal courthouses are under attack. So it's kind of an indirect cost of these idiot Antifa rioters that more children are being trafficked today and they're not being saved because law enforcement cannot help. But, law enforcement is all about catching bad guys. But what happens when they catch a good guy, when they catch a kid? What happens when law enforcement picks up somebody who's being prostituted and is being trafficked for sex? Well, they don't often have the resources to do the kinds of things for these people that need to be done. And so that's where other agencies come in. And I've talked a lot on the podcast about how important it is to have these parallel structures of government. So not just a government agency, we don't need another massive bureaucracy, but actual caring people who put themselves on the line, who go out and raise money to help save these kids and to give them the resources that they need to make it back into real life, to make it to return to normalcy, whatever that looks like.
Other than that guy that, sold me, and I stayed with him up until about 5 years ago, I didn't have a pimp. I didn't know what a pimp was. I mean, he was the only one I had. He was the only one that ever really know. I didn't know. I didn't know this was illegal. I didn't know none of that. Something I was, I guess, at a young age introduced to. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, and I didn't grow up like this. I can't explain it. It's just when I was 8 years old, my mother sold me, and I've been doing this ever since. I didn't grow up in a family. I didn't have a chance like everybody else did. I didn't have a roof, and like I said, I was 8 years old, and the next thing I knew, I was having sex for money, and then I started crying, and I got addicted to something, and it made me feel better, and I didn't have to be in that position. So I hate when people judge us because you never know where you can be. Just because I'm out here and doing what I'm doing, that doesn't mean that you never know what you could have been. My hand got dealt different than anybody else's hand did, Don't judge a person, get to know them.
Looks like. So I got to meet a dynamite young lady named Esther who's working with an organization called Safety Compass up in Oregon. And Safety Compass helps kids that are trying to pull them out of that life and give them another option. So I want to play for you now the interview that I did with Esther. Check this out.
Esther Nelson. I'm the CEO of Safety Compass, and currently I'm also assigned to the Washington County Task Force Coordination role. So right now, anywhere in 4 counties, if anybody, law enforcement or a juvenile worker or child welfare, DHS, finds someone who they think has been trafficked, a kid who has enough red flags that they're just questioning what's going on with this child, or maybe they actually found them in a sting so they know what's going on with them, they'll call Safety Compass. We're confidential, community-based advocates, meaning we're not part of the criminal justice system, but we do commit to working closely with them. And our privilege is that we get to come in and have a totally private, confidential conversation with the kids and just learn from them, like, what did they need? From their own view, what would safety look like? What are they hoping for in their life? And do they have any dreams left? Because a lot of times they don't. And so by speaking with them completely confidentially, we don't have an agenda. And I feel so privileged in that fact that everybody else in the system has an agenda. They have to, it's their job. And we're the one group of people who come in with, no preconceived notion. We just want to know, who are you and what do you hope for? And if you didn't have to make your quota to give all your cash to your pimp today, by the end of the night to not get beat, like what would life look like? And they can't answer that. But in speaking with us over time and us sort of speaking life back into them and like bringing, reflecting back their strengths and bringing like value to their words, well, saying to them like, that was so articulate, or, I saw your eyes light up when you spoke about your pet or your sister or, some family member they haven't seen in usually a long time. And over time, even in just one conversation, you can see this transformation in them where then when you ask them about like, if you did get into safe housing, what would you want to do? And their answers are so indicative of where they're actually at developmentally, but they're so beautiful because their answers are like, I'd really love to ride a horse, or I would love to go like go-kart racing. Would you ever go go-kart racing with me? And so they just want to have fun. And that's proof of where they're at. It reminds you that they're children, and they are. But they haven't been able to live like that, and many of them don't have no childhood to speak of because they've been trafficked from such a young age. So we get to be the one like entity in this, very meaningful continuum of care, but they have different roles. They're investigating, or they're determining, where the child abuse was, or getting a statement for court. And we just get to say, like, who are you? You deserve to have a cheerleader. Can we be that with you? Can we just be, friend, mentor, sounding board, listener, long enough that you believe in yourself enough to take that dream and take some steps to go do it. So, and I live in that world most of the time because, like I said, we are that bridge. And so I spend most of my time talking to investigators and reviewing tape and being like, right there, stop. Like, that's the place where you need to go back to the interview and change. Like, right. So I spend most of my world in the analytical world, but our job isn't there. We just speak that language enough to bridge, It has changed, throughout my career. We've had multiple iterations of the face of trafficking. And with the takedown of Backpage, which was, the biggest pimp in the world, the biggest sex for sale platform, it did splinter the sex industry. We've seen other websites pop up and kids being marketed on websites like they were on Backpage. But we've also seen movement back to the track. So we have, increased movement on the street, a lot more organized brothel-related crime, massage parlor-related, brothel-style massage parlor crime. And then I've just seen a huge movement to sort of shift the sex industry into what was very organized drug trafficking and arms trafficking, which most gangs used to have pretty organized but sort of separate sex, right? So they'd have like these people who move drugs and these people who pimp. And they might cross over, but mostly pimps were keeping their girls sober because they could make more money off of them if they didn't give drugs to them too. And now we see so many trafficking situations where the kids are pulled into brothels, they're forcibly shot up with heroin. While they're out, they're sold, as many times as they can have, make a profit off of them until they come back. And then they're moved from brothel to brothel. And it's all organized by the same gangs that were moving the drugs before. They're just moving people in and out of those like trap houses along the way. And that's much more organized than it used to be. And they're not posted online. They're not walking a track. It's really hard to get to those subcultures. We have girls come out and talk to us about their experiences, but by that time they are strung out. They don't remember a lot of it, so they can't give you IDs on the people that assaulted them, and they're very afraid for their life. So that's been a huge challenge, and that I've seen really emerge over the last 3 years or so, more than I've ever seen it before. Usually I feel pretty removed from danger. Our girls are good about letting us know, how much heat they're getting from traffickers and whether or not there are hits out on them, things like that. And usually I think we are seen as pretty benign to traffickers. We have had some traffickers who also thought they were rappers make rapper songs about us. So, we've made it that big in the world of Pimpland that they could write a song of some hate mail against us. But short of that, usually we're not seen as a threat to them. Actually we probably should be, because we help get girls feeling strong enough in themselves that they can testify. It's horrible, but it's also, that's the truth. I mean, the juxtaposition of the horrible, evil, horror of the world and people's beautiful, resilient survival skills and their own hope for their own future, and the fact that they do still have these beautiful childlike, hopes that are so arrested development. It's like what you hope for when you're 16 is actually what you hoped for when you were 8, because that's when you first got turned out or whatever. And it's like that was preserved, and their hope is preserved, and I believe in. But you just can't ever take somebody's hope away. It's not possible. And so we see this in our kids every day at work, and you can grieve for everything they've lost, and you sure can grieve the ones you do lose, because we have lost kids and they've been murdered while we've been working with them, and that's horrible. But even then, I look at the life that they did get to live while they were exposed to helpers and people that believed in them, and I just think, well, that wasn't wasted, because any act of love or care for other people enriched their life while they still had that time. So none of it's wasted. And if I only have a little window with people, and I think that on scene when I meet them the first time, if I only have an hour, or I think, maybe I get to hang out with them, for 10 years, which I do have kids on our caseload that I've known for a good 10 years. It's like whatever time I have with them, like I want them to take that, even if it's just a planted seed. And I hope that they leave not thinking I had anything to do with it. Like I hope that they leave feeling like I believe in myself, or I am strong, I am smart, or whatever it was that I tried to reflect, and that they don't give me any credit for that because that's their own, But I hope that it's enough that they could take it with them and it becomes something better or bigger. And if that's the only time they get, then it was better in the time that they had left. And so, we do have a very high mortality rate, and that I've had to reckon with. But I'm sure I'm the most paranoid person, the most paranoid parent alive, sure. But I also believe in equipping people. Like you can't keep kids in a cave. And if you do, you actually haven't equipped them. And they're probably worse off than they were going to be otherwise. So, sorry, I don't want that to ruin your video. There's a little kid going ding, 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 ding. I'm so sorry.
It was your puppy. I thought it was the dog.
No, it's my child.
It's fine.
Okay. I just believe that knowledge is power. And if we can give kids knowledge about not only what a trafficker might look like if they were being recruited, but also what do healthy boundaries and healthy relationships look like? Because if you don't have a model for what it looks like when it's going well, you're not going to have all the tools you need to discern the difference. And kids are missing that, right? Like sometimes we're beginning to do a better job of awareness 101. But pimps and traffickers don't really start out saying, hey, I'm a pimp or a trafficker, right? Because then people would run away. They start out relationally and like, hey, I think I might want to date you or be a boyfriend, or send in a female, like, hey, let's be girlfriends. So when I'm working on equipping kids, I'm saying, what do healthy boundaries look like? And if you set one and someone didn't respect it, what would that look like? And do you feel like you have the right to say, actually, that just broke a boundary that I have and I'm done talking to you? And also then what happens? Because if someone walks away from you and you have huge emotional needs not met by the rest of your life, it feels really bad. I mean, it just does. That's human. So how can we speak enough life into kids that when they do set a boundary and maybe have to walk away from someone, or that person walks away from them, that rejection isn't like devastating? Exactly, because other people believe in them and love them. No one will ever get me, because I see it every single day, to believe that people's hope is ever, literally ever extinguished. As long as they are alive, the fact that they are alive means there's something in them that's still working for our future. And sometimes you have to coach that back into kids, like remind them of that, and they'll go through phases where they don't believe it, so you believe it for them until they do again.
Hey folks, isn't that powerful? Don't ever give up hope. As long as they're living, as long as they're breathing, they've still got hope. And all you need is for somebody to believe in you, like Esther and Safety Compass, and those kids can actually be saved. So I just think that's awesome. Well, I love it that so many of you are saying that you believe in this podcast, because we're getting a lot of new patrons over at patreon.com/hotzone. A lot of people who are subscribing and saying, we want to support this podcast. And that just gives me so much encouragement. It really gets me out there working for you, to bring you stuff that you're not seeing in the normal news. I want to be that outlet for you guys to, show you what's going on in the world, and just not only that, but show you what you can do about it. So thanks for watching the Hot Zone today. We'll see you again next time.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.